So I guess we have 13 participants. We will start ahead and let them all join in. So last class we saw what is meant by what are the things that we saw in the last class? Yes, can someone type in whatever we saw in the last class, yesterday's class? Yes, IPC. Good, process creation and termination and different methods of your IPC. Yes, yes, yes. Thank you, Ma. So today we are starting with your CPU scheduling. We will start with, sorry. So today we will start with your CPU scheduling and different scheduling criteria that will be used for scheduling. So whatever the process states that we saw in the last class is given here. So we had two states create, or this is your new state and this is your terminated state, or after exiting this will be your state. As we already saw, this is your main memory inside which you will have three states. Wait, okay, so we had one more state called as ready state. Okay, here we have different states for waiting and blocked. As we saw, it is like waiting or block state. Okay, so we'll have this as ready state. So again here we have swapped out and ready state. This is your blocked or waiting state. So these are the different process states that we saw. So whichever occupies your main memory, whenever there is no space in your main memory, you went to your secondary storage space, and that can also be called as swap space. Yes, we saw another name for this swap space. So this will be on to your secondary storage device. Secondary storage has this kind of swapped out and swap in. We saw what is swap out and swap in. So this is a general diagram for telling all the different memory elements, including your swap space. Can anyone type in what did we see for this secondary storage space? What is the term that we used to refer to this secondary storage space in case the main memory does not have space? Yes, just go through your previous, yes. Good, it is a backing store. So swap space is also called as backing store. Yes, so this swap space or backing store is used for having a backup space for your ready and waiting processes. So we'll go to the next one. So we are going to see today what is CPU scheduling. We already learnt about the different types of schedulers. Can you fill in this blank? CPU scheduling is done by, we saw three schedulers. The first one being short term, long term and medium term scheduler. Which of these schedulers will do CPU scheduling? Yes, anyone? CPU scheduling is done by which type of scheduler? Short term, long term or medium term scheduler? Yes, it is a short-term scheduler. Good. So our short-term scheduler will be involved in your CPU scheduling. CPU scheduling means you are going to switch the CPU among the processes so that you're going to have a proper resource utilization or CPU utilization. Okay, so we are going to switch the CPU among the different processes which are available in order to have a good utilization of all the resources. So this CPU scheduling, today we are going to see on to your single processor systems. So what is the single processor system is? At any point of time, only one process can execute inside your processor. So with this in mind, we are going to schedule our processes. So for this purpose, we will be using your ready queue. So we are going to see what is going to happen when your processes are going to be moved from your ready state to running state. This is the only state that it can move. Okay. So we are not going to consider about your waiting state. Why? Because it is waiting for some IO to complete or some interrupt or some event to happen. After completion, it will come back to your ready state. So the scheduler, the CPU scheduler is going to choose among the processes which are present in this ready state. So this is called a ready queue. I have several processes which are lined up, say P1, P2, etc. And among these processes, what is the process that I will choose for execution is done by my CPU scheduler. Okay. So this CPU scheduler, the job is to find out one of the processes among your ready queue which can be executed onto your CPU. Yes. So this is about your CPU scheduling. So now we'll see what are the different types of CPU scheduling. So first we will move on to the types, then I'll come to what are the conditions. So the types: preemptive scheduling and non-preemptive scheduling. Okay. Preemptive, what is the meaning of this term preemption? So preemption means, suppose you are doing an assignment, you can save your assignment and do it at a later point of time. Whatever you did previously will be stored, which means that any process can be interrupted in between several times in order to execute several other processes. That is called as preemption. Okay. So once a process starts executing, another process can come and interrupt the running process. That is called as preemptive scheduling. So this preemptive scheduling came only from your Windows 95 onwards. Before that, whatever we had was your non-preemptive scheduling. Okay. So what is this non-preemptive scheduling is? You start with a process P1. I have to complete my process P1. Okay. This is my start. I have to end this. Only after completing this process can my processor move to the next process, which means if I'm requesting for a CPU time of say 3 seconds, in between this 3 seconds, I cannot allow another process to come and take the processor. Understood? So I have a CPU time of 3 seconds. So in between this 3 seconds, I am not going to allow any other process to come and interrupt. That is called as non-preemptive or cooperative scheduling. But in this case, say the same process, I have a CPU time of 3 seconds. Say I have 0 to 1, I have executed my process P1. After that, I can execute some other process, say PX, and again come back to the process P1 at a later point of time. That is called as preemptive scheduling. So these are the two types of scheduling: preemptive scheduling and non-preemptive scheduling. So now we are going to see what are all the conditions under which a process moves from your running or waiting to other state, any other state, say your ready state. So we are just going to see that. So we have already seen this. So under the condition of an IO request, what happens? It will go from your running to waiting state. Whenever there is an IO request, it will go from the running state to your waiting state until the IO is complete. Okay. So we have CPU. So CPU, and then you have some more IO time. So when it is doing your IO processing, the CPU is not needed. Okay. So it will go from my running state to my waiting state. Whenever I use the CPU, that is when I will be in my running state. So do I need any kind of scheduling for this? Think upon it. So the next one is whenever I have an interrupt from some IO device that it has completed its execution, then we will move from your running to ready state. Okay. So running to ready state, in case you have some interrupt like your expiring of time slice, in that case we will go to your ready state, which means I want some other process to come and execute into the CPU. So I am moving the existing process from the CPU to the ready state. So the third point is completion of IO. Say any IO process is completed, then what will happen? It will come from your waiting to your ready state. The last one, when the process terminates, what will happen? It will go from running to terminated state. Okay. So these are some of the conditions under which the process will move from one state to another. This is just your state transition. We are seeing a recap of this. So now what is with this preemptive scheduling is, so when there is an interrupt, it is preemptive scheduling. So when there is no interrupt in between, that will come under your non-preemptive. So only time your processor can switch is your process termination. Only when there is a process termination happening, your non-preemptive scheduling algorithm can take the next process for execution. Okay. So we will move on to the next one. Any doubts so far in your preemptive and non-preemptive? So the next topic is a dispatcher. So now your CPU scheduler has chosen one particular process for executing in the CPU. Now this context switching will be done by your dispatcher, meaning you have to save the state and reload the other process. So this will be done by your dispatcher. And switching from your CPU or kernel mode to your user mode, this will be done again by your dispatcher, and you are going to point to the proper location and restart the next program which is to be executed. That is nothing but your reloading, right? So reloading, switching in the sense saving, and then switching to user mode or to your kernel mode, all of them will be done by your dispatcher. So what is dispatch latency? Latency is nothing but your delay. So the delay that is associated with stopping one process and loading the other process is called as dispatch latency. So I have to stop my current process and load the new process, and the time it takes to do this is called as dispatch latency. Yes? So next one is scheduling criteria. So why do we go for scheduling? The main goal is resource utilization or your CPU utilization. You make sure that the CPU utilization is maximum or the CPU is kept busy as much as possible. Okay. So the next one, the next criteria is throughput. Throughput is nothing but number of processes that are completed per unit time. Okay. So if I'm able to complete 5 processes in 1 hour, so 5 is called my throughput. So it is with respect to a time, any time. Say I can complete, if it is a small process, what will happen? I can complete 10 processes per second. So this is how your throughput will be defined. The next one, turn around time. Turn around time, TAT. So this turnaround time is nothing but the difference of time interval between the time of submission to the time of completion. Okay. I give you an assignment today and until whenever you complete it, say you completed it after 5 days time, that will be your turnaround time. Inside this turnaround time, you could have just been idle or in the waiting state for a long time. You will not have concentrated on that assignment for more than say 1 hour or so. So all together will constitute your turnaround time. Whatever the time you spent in waiting plus whatever the time you spent in your running. All these together constitutes your turnaround time. Whenever I submitted, so time at which the process was submitted to the time of completion of the same process is called as turnaround time. The next one is waiting time. Waiting time is the time spent in the ready queue. Please be clear on this. The time spent in the ready queue and not in the waiting queue. Okay. All those, it should not spend time in my waiting queue. That does not come under my waiting time. Only the time spent in the ready queue, which means the CPU is honoring some other process and my current process is waiting in my ready queue. Only the time spent in the ready queue is summed up to get your waiting time. The last one is response time. Response time is the time of submission of the process. Submission means entering into the, so being ready. Okay, the time at which it is ready. It is not your final stage. So it is your time of submission means I am submitting the process to my CPU or to my ready queue. To the production of first response. Not the completion. It is not completion. It is the production of my first response. Whenever I get the first output from the process, that is called as my response time. So these are some of the scheduling criteria which will be considered for scheduling the processes. Can you tell me what is the aim of the scheduling? What is the aim? What and all I have to maximize and what are all the criteria that I need to minimize? Can someone unmute and talk? So we have seen 5 criteria now. Among these 5 criteria, which all I should be maximizing and which all I should minimize?
Ma'am, maximize throughput and minimize turnaround time.
Okay. And minimize
Turnaround time.
Okay. What about others, ma'am?
Ma'am, minimize waiting time also and response time.
Okay. I'm just putting as waiting time and response time. Good, ma. Thank you. So we are going to try to minimize your turnaround time, waiting time and your response time. and we are going to increase your CPU utilization and your throughput. So this will be the main aim of your scheduling. Okay, you understood all the 5 points here, right? We will be calculating all of them in the forthcoming problems. Yes? So maximizing your throughput and CPU utilization and minimizing turnaround time, waiting time and your response time. So we are moving to the scheduling algorithms. The first algorithm is first come, first serve. The second one is shortest job first, preemptive and non-preemptive, priority scheduling, preemptive and non-preemptive, and finally you will have your round robin or your time sharing environment. Okay, this will be used in your time sharing environment, and this is the algorithm which is being used in most of the process scheduling. Even though every one can be used for different types of processes, we are going to see one by one, though this will be used in a predominant manner. Okay. So take down your notebook, and so any scheduling algorithm that you're going to do, you're going to draw a Gantt chart. Okay, Gantt chart is nothing but a block, okay, like this, which will tell whatever the process that is going to be in my CPU at any point of time, till the time of completion or the end time. Starting from 0 till end, we are going to draw what are all the processes which are going to be present in your CPU. Say like this, okay, P1, P2, etc. So this is called as a Gantt chart. The chart is a Gantt chart. It is a timeline chart. Okay, it is going to tell me at one point of time the process is going to use my CPU. Next, we already saw what is waiting time. We are going to find out what is the average waiting time, because we have several processes lined up here. You're going to find out what is the average waiting time, and we are going to find out the average turnaround time. So these three things we will be doing for each and every scheduling algorithm. Okay. So now FCFS, or first come first serve, that is also called as FCFS. It is a non-preemptive mode of scheduling, which means when a single process is executing, I will not allow any other process to come into picture. So that is called as a non-preemptive scheduling algorithm. So the example you can take is, you're going to buy a movie ticket at the ticket counter. As of now, no one is going to go to a movie, or rather we don't go to a ticket counter at all. But still, so if you are going to a movie and you're going to buy a movie ticket, you're going to stand in a queue. That queue is called my ready queue. Okay. So once you get your turn at the ticket counter, you're going to finish your job and then come out. You're not going to come out in between paying money, or I'll come back and pay money. All those is not allowed. Okay. So such a condition is called as first come first serve. You come, whoever comes first, they will be honored first. So we are going to draw your ready queue as well. Okay, you will draw your Gantt chart. You will find out your average waiting time and average turnaround time, and you will draw something called as a ready queue. Okay, I have this one point left out. What is convoy effect? Okay, we shall assume that we have a lot of IO bound processes and a big CPU bound process, one big CPU bound process. So now what happens? This CPU bound process is going to occupy your CPU. Now what should happen? All the IO bound processes will assume that they are doing their IO operations. After completing their IO operations, they come back to my ready queue, because there is already so many processes, one big process, CPU bound process, which is executing. So IO bound processes after completion of IO are moved to the ready queue. These IO bound processes will occupy only a small amount of time in your CPU. Okay, that is the meaning of your IO bound processes. The processes which are going to spend more time in utilizing the IO resources and very less time in the CPU are called as IO bound process. Whereas CPU bound, it is going to utilize more time in your CPU when compared to your IO processes. Okay. So now what we are going to do, we are going to make these smaller IO processes which have completed the IO operation, but they need some amount of CPU time. But these processes are going to wait for the CPU bound process. Such a condition is called as convoy effect. Convoy effect. So the processes which are IO bound are made to wait for a longer time in order to get the CPU is called as convoy effect. Even though they have very less time to spend in the CPU, they are made to wait for a longer time. So that is called as convoy effect. So one major drawback of this FCFS is your convoy effect. So we'll see how. Okay. So just just go through this chart. We have processes, 5 processes. Burst time. What is burst time? The time it has to spend in your CPU can be called as CPU burst or burst time. Okay. So this is the time. All of this are in some unit. We are not going to give the units. In case the units are given, use it. But otherwise, just any unit, any time unit, say seconds, minutes, hours, whatever can it be. Okay. And what is this? This is your arrival time. What is the time at which it arrives or it comes to your ready queue? Not to the new state, it is coming to your ready state. Okay. So we have processes, say 5 processes, and we have the time it is going to spend in your CPU and what is your arrival time to the ready queue. Okay. So shall we move on to the first algorithm? So first come, first serve. So at time 0, what is the process which will be coming into your ready queue? So this is your ready queue. And this is your Gantt chart. So Gantt chart always starts with 0. Okay. Now what we have is this arrival time 0. So we are going to take at time 0. Okay. At time 0, what are all the processes that will be present inside your ready queue? Okay. We are going to have only one process, that is your P4. All the other process would not have arrived. Okay. Only you are the only person who has come. So I can allocate this P4 to my CPU. So shall we put it onto your CPU? So this process at time 0, it has arrived onto my ready queue. Because there are no other processes being executed onto my CPU, I am directly moving the process P4 from your ready queue to your CPU. So how long should the P4 process occupy the CPU? That is given by my burst time. Okay. We have already seen that this is a non-preemptive scheduling algorithm, which means once a process has come into picture or come into the CPU, it cannot go out of the CPU unless it completes its execution. So now what we do is, I am going to allocate this process for a time of 3 units. So now 3. Yes. So this is how you are going to schedule it. So this is at time 0. What will happen at time 1? Okay. At time 1, we have your process name P3. So this P3 has come to your ready queue. Just write down the time if you want in the top. So this will be your arrival time. I have just written down the arrival time on top of it. So, and what is the burst? We'll write down the burst as well. So burst time is 8 for your P3. This is with respect to P3. So now the time is 1. So the time is 1. The process P4 will be under execution. So at time 1, it is still under execution. How much of CPU burst is left? At time 1, the CPU burst that is left is equal to 2. 2 more units I have to execute. Now shall we move on to time 2? Okay, at time 2, what happened? I have my first process P3 which came, so at time 3, I had my process P3 which has arrived at time 1, and I have at time 2 process P1 has arrived. So this is your time 2. So at time 2, there are 2 processes which are in your ready queue, and there is one process which is being executed. This is time 1, time 2. Okay, this is being executed. It is still under execution. I have to finish my execution, right? So 3 minus 2, I have still 1 burst left. I still need 1 more unit of time to spend in the CPU. Understood till here? So next we are moving to time 3. So now time 3, what happens? P4 has completed its execution. Time 3, do we have any? So this has come in, this has come in, this has come at time 3. So this has come in at 1 and this has come in at 2. Now this process P4 is no more coming back to your ready queue. It is going out because it is in your completed state or terminated state. Yes, this is in your terminated state, so it will not come back. So now I have 2 processes here. As per our algorithm, first come, first serve. So whichever came first will be served first. So the next process which will get into your CPU is your, which came at the first point. So it is P3. Okay. So understood till here? So what is the burst of P3? It is 8. So this will go on till 8. So this 3 plus 8, which will be equal to 11. So until 11 time units, I will have my P3 being scheduled. And what will happen at 4 and 5? There are arrival times of 4 and 5. So understood till here? So we have process P3 coming in at time 3 because your process P4 completed execution. So now we will allocate the CPU to process P3 and P1 will still be in the ready queue. Okay, at time 4. At time 4, what happens? We have one more process which is coming on to your P5 will enter into your ready queue, and there is already one more process P1 which entered into your at time 2. So this at time 4, it is still under execution, right? Because it has to go till 11. P3 will go on till 11. So this will be the case at time 4. Yes? Moving on to time 5. So time 5, I have P1 which arrived at time 2, and this at 4 and this at 5. And P3 is still under execution. Yes? Now can we finish it? Is there any more processes which will come onto your ready queue now? Okay, one process is out of scope because it has gone out, it has executed and gone out of the ready queue, and one process is under execution and 3 other processes are on to my ready queue. Now I don't need to fill in my ready queue anymore. Okay, so this will be the last step. When your arrival time maximum number is reached, I don't have to bother about my ready queue in the case of a non-preemptive algorithm. So there is no need to worry about your ready queue now. Only thing that you are going to be concerned will be your Gantt chart. So I have put in 0, 3, and at time 11, this will complete execution. The P3 will complete execution. So this together will be how many units? 8 units. This is your 8. At time 11, this will happen. After this, what will happen? Can you finish it off? If you have understood how it works, now there is no work to your ready queue. Just move the processes one by one onto your Gantt chart and complete it. Anyone who has completed can show it. I'll give you 2 minutes time. Just complete your first come first serve scheduling. So the criteria on which the scheduling happens is your arrival time. You are not bothered about anything else but your arrival time. So if you come first, you will be given the ticket first. That's all. Yes, anyone wants to show your diagram? Or just type in if you have completed. Any doubts? Anyone has a doubt? We'll still see how we can explain it further better. So P4, the arrival time was 0. So for your reference, the arrival time was 0 and P3 arrival time was 1. And after this, we will be putting it with P1, which had an arrival time of 2. And this will go on till a burst of 6. Okay. So here again, I am going to add 6 more units. So 11 plus 6, I will be going on till your 17th unit. Yes. And finally, after this, I have the arrival time of 4. So I will take my 4th arrival process, P5 entering into this. This will go on for a time unit of 4. So it is 21. And finally, I have my P2, which is going to have a burst of 3 seconds. So we are going to add on 3 more here, which will go to the last point being 24. Yes? Try to do it on your own. If you're comfortable, just tell me, or if there is any other discrepancy here, you're not able to understand, tell me. Shall we move on? Yes, sure, ma. So, this first come first serve is a non-preemptive scheduling algorithm. So we'll just have this and we'll draw here. Okay. For those who didn't understand, just listen. So this is a Gantt chart. I'm going to start with 0. So whichever process comes first will be allocated to the processor. So let me draw one more queue. This is my ready queue. So ready queue. Okay. So you're going to buy your tickets or whatever it is. You're going to stand in a line and come for your CPU execution. So whichever process, the process first vanducho, that will be coming on to my ready queue first. So P4 the arrival time is 0. So I am putting it on to my ready queue. So time 0, P4 came into my ready queue. So shall we first finish off the ready queue alone? At time 1, what happened? I had my next process P3 coming in. So these are the times which are associated with every process. The processes are named from P1 to P5, and now P3 came in at time 1. Next, what is the process which is coming? At time 2 we have P1, and finally P at time 4. Whoever comes first, we are going to put it onto my ready queue. P5, and at time 5, what is the process? P2. Clear in this? How do I fill in my ready queue? Yes? Depending on my arrival time, I am going to put it onto my ready queue. But this is possible only for this first come first serve. Okay, because it is a non-preemptive, there will not be any process which will come from the CPU onto my ready queue. So ready queue fill paniyachu. Now I am going to put 0 time left. What is the process? There is no process in your CPU. So 0 time, this P4 has arrived at 0 time. So I am going to give it this P4 onto my CPU. Okay. P4, how long will it spend in my CPU? That is given by my burst time. So 3 seconds or 3 whatever it is. So until 3 it is going to spend in my CPU. So for 3 time units P4 will spend. What is the next process? So once this is completed its execution in the CPU, it will no longer be in your ready queue. So once it is dispatched onto the CPU itself, it will go off from the ready queue. Now what is the next process present in your ready queue? That is process P3. P3 will come here. P3 what is the time? P3 it is 8. So 8 time units my P3 has to spend. So 3 plus 8 is 11. So now P3 is over. Next we'll go to process P1. So P1, how many time units? P1 has to spend a time of 6 time units. So 6 time units. This 6 added to this 11. So it is 17. And lastly, you have your P5 followed by your P2. P5 or a time limit of 4. So 17 plus 4 is 21. Finally, P2, 3 time units. 21 plus 3 will be 24. Yes? So this is your Gantt chart. Yes, ma? Annalakshmi? So one by one, you're going to move the process from
understood,
the
ma'am.
processor and complete the execution. So this is the disadvantage of having an online class. I cannot come near someone and teach. So anyways, we'll try to make it as better as possible. So fine. In the process first varudho, adu vandu CPU kulla podrom. And it will complete its execution and then go back or go to the completed state. All of you are clear? Sorry, this is 24. Yeah. Yes? So now we are going to find out the waiting time. Those who have already understood it, just go about finding out the waiting time. Waiting time, eppadi kandupidikalam? How can we find out the waiting time? Any idea? How long it is waiting in your waiting queue? We are going to find it out. So waiting time, let me put it as WT. Yes, anyone? Ready queue la evlo nero wait pannittu irundhuchu. How will you find it out?
Arrival time minus the time it starts executing.
Yes. So whenever it starts execution minus your arrival time. Can you find out the average waiting time? So first one, we are going to find out the waiting time of process P1. P1, how long did it wait in your ready queue? So P1 arrived at a time of 2 and it started execution. Whenever it started execution, this point we have to take. So starting execution is at 11 and arrival time is 2. So the waiting time of process P1 is 9. Can you do it for all the 5 processes and tell me what is the average waiting time? I'll call out one by one and ask you. Waiting time for P4 and waiting time of P5. Yes. Okay, I have got one answer. Very good. And find out average. Average is nothing but I am going to sum up all the waiting times divided by the total number of processes. Okay. Yes. Someone. Joven, can you tell me what is the waiting time for P2? Fast. Yes, waiting time for P3. Someone? Kamali Shri. Waiting time for P3. Sanjay. Yes, fast. What is waiting time for P2? You can type in. The person whom I called is not there. Please type in. Sanjay, it's 2 for. Okay, what is for P2? P2 arrival time is 5 and P2 started executing at time 21. P3 arrival time is 1 and it started executing at, okay. Sanjay has told it for P3. Good. Yes. Yes, good. So for P4, it arrived at time 0 and it started execution at 0. So it is 0. Okay. And the last one, P5. So -4 and P5 started execution at this time. So 17 minus 4, which will be equal to 13. So all of these waiting time together, we are going to divide it by 5 and the average will be equal to 8. Yes, Ramnarayan, your answer is correct. The average waiting time is 8. Okay, what is the time? I have 10 minutes left. I'm not sure if I can cover the next algorithm. I'll just give you one problem. Please take it down. I don't know if it is book problem. 24, 3, 3. Okay, these are the processes. I have 3 processes and I have their CPU burst. So this is my CPU burst and these are my 3 processes. Yes? Fast, do the scheduling. Yes, ma, all of you have answered. Thank you. So you have all found out what is the waiting time. Now, before going on to the next parameter, just do a scheduling for this problem. I have given 3 processes and the CPU burst of 3 processes. Try to schedule it according to first come, first serve. Yes, Srinath, arrival time. Arrival time, it's not given. So you can assume that all of them arrive at time 0. Okay. In case the arrival time is not given, you assume that they all arrive at time 0 and in any order. But for the time being, I am going to give you, there might be some delay. So we are going to take the order of P1, P2, P3. So this will be on to your ready queue, P1, P2 and P3. Okay. So the arrival time of all the processes, whichever it is not mentioned, it will be equal to 0. If you have worked it out, can you please show it on your video? Anyone who has completed? (24:33). Yes, anyone? Can you show it on your video? Kanishka, is it done, ma? Or Sanjit?
Yes,
Anyone
ma'am.
able to show it on the video?
Yes, ma'am, I should.
So 0 will have process P1 for a time of 24 time units, followed by P2, which will go for 27 because the CPU burst is going to be 3, and finally I'll have my P3 having a CPU burst of again 3. Yes? Average is 17. Yes, check your average whether it is 17. So average of waiting time, yeah? I'm not sure. Let's just check it. Yes? Someone else please type in if the average waiting time is 17. We'll move on to the last. One more parameter that we are going to find out for both these problems. Yes. Okay, ma. Thank you. So now we are going to find out what is the turnaround time. So we are going to find out the turnaround time. What is turnaround time? The time of submission to the time of completion. Okay. So this turnaround time will also include your waiting time inside it. Okay. So we are going to find out similarly turnaround time for your P1. Can you find out? So it came in at a time of 2, and what was the time it completed execution? So completion of P1 happened at 17. So 17 minus 2. That will be your turnaround time for P1. So whenever it completed execution minus the time when it arrived onto the ready queue. That is your turnaround time. First, find out the average. Similarly, find out the average turnaround time here as well. So for both these problems, find out both the average waiting time and average turnaround time. Yes? So P2, the average, sorry, the turnaround time will be P2, 23 minus 5. Yes, can someone type in what is the average time that you got? Yes. So for the other one, 17.6. Yes, please confirm all of you whether it is 17.6. Find out the turnaround time for all the processes, then divide it by 5 and tell me the answer. And similarly, find out for this also, the other problem also, what is the average turnaround time? Anyone else? $13.8 for the second one, ma. Check your answers. So understood how you have to calculate your waiting time and turnaround time, right? Please confirm both the answers, ma, others. Or if you get a new answer, please post it. Yes, I guess it is 12.6. Akash, check your answer. 12.6 for the first one, yes. Average turnaround time is 12.6 for the first one. And for the second one, I'm not sure if this is for second one. 26 for the second one. Yeah. Yes, 12.6 is correct. The other problem, I'm not sure. Yes, other problem, second one, 26 or 27? 27? Yes? Yes, 27. Good. So now we'll see few points about first come, first serve and we'll wind up. So whatever we saw, waiting time was nothing but whenever it started its execution minus your arrival time. Similarly, what was turnaround time? Whenever it completed execution minus your arrival time. Can you tell me turnaround time as a function of your waiting time? Turnaround time is equal to waiting time plus dash, whatever it is. Can you find this out? Can you check your sheet and tell me? Wherever you have written, you know the turnaround time. Can you give an example? P1, what is the turnaround time? P1, I'm not sure. P1 arrived at 2. Okay. P1 arrived at 2. And turnaround time is 15, right? So what was the waiting time? 9. Yes? Plus what? Yes. Good. So you can check it with all your answers. The answer is 6 here, and that is nothing but your burst time or your CPU burst. Okay. So your turnaround time is nothing but waiting time plus CPU burst. The last one is like why this is the simplest method of implementation of scheduling algorithm, and it is easy. And the disadvantages are it is non-preemptive, which means I cannot interrupt in between in order to make some other process to take the CPU. In this average, the waiting time is very high. We will be seeing it when we compare it with other scheduling algorithms, and it is not ideal for time sharing systems because in a time sharing system we are going to alternate the CPU with different processes at every frequent time intervals, which is not possible because it is again a preemptive algorithm, sorry, non-preemptive algorithm. Suppose I have a very short process at the end of the ready queue, it has to wait for a longer time. So all of these disadvantages will be nullified in the forthcoming scheduling algorithms. Okay. So just go and I'll just give you 2 more problems to do it onto your first come first serve with little twist onto it. Please check it out today itself and try to submit it so that tomorrow we can start with your next algorithm, which is nothing but your shortest job first. Okay. So if there are no doubts, we can just wind up the session. Hope all of you understood, because this is the first algorithm. I have taken a long time just to make sure that you understand what is ready queue. And as I am not able to have a contact or an eye contact with you people, I am not able to understand how fast or how late you understood the concept. So we will be moving on at a faster rate when we come to the next scheduling algorithms. Yeah. So that's all for today. Any doubts, you can stay back or else you can leave. Thank you.